Hello guys, welcome back. So we are still on our project. My project is open already as I opened it. And so today I am going to go over some few things that you need to know. So there's not going to be a more like a practical session actually. It's just going to be a demonstration, more or less like an understanding of what we have present. So if you're not familiar with Expo, this is the best time to listen. So I don't want you to be on your computer, trying to code or do anything else. Just listen, just open yourself to understand. That's all. Then we'll get into the practical session. If you are okay with the information that I'm sharing already, you can just go to the practical part of the video to follow. But for now, just I want you to just listen, at least to understand what you are seeing here, so that you can better make use of the code. Now, everything that is here is very important and key to the project. So I'm going to introduce you to what we have here. Let me increase the screen a little, and then okay, so that we can all see it clearly. Now, if you look at this side here, this is my project folder, and inside my project folder I have these files. So the first question would be, which part of these files am I allowed to make changes? It's very important to programming that when you are working on any project, you should know which of them you have the liberty to change anything that you want to, and look for changes in your code. Changes in your app as you run it, and which parts are not for you to make changes. They are just dependencies that you make use of in your code. Okay. The first one is this folder. This is the node model. This part of the project is not for you to make changes to. These are dependencies. These are modules for you to make use of in your project. Now, these modules have everything that it needs to run, manage the various screens you see on your app, and manage it handles everything, compiling your code, making it, pushing it to production. It has all those information inside here. There are a lot of folders which are actually packages that are handling the entire project, and Expo is using this to do everything. And this is the Expo folder. This folder too is not supposed to be touched. You are not supposed to touch it for any reason. Just leave it until there's a need to know what is inside. So these two folders are out of bounds. Just leave them for now. Now the other folders or files that you are allowed to make changes to. Another file, and a file that you are allowed to make changes to. Sometimes this is the TF. This is for TypeScript configuration. So it has to do with TypeScript. So whenever there's a need to adjust certain information about TypeScript, TS TypeScript. So we make that this project is TypeScript based, but we are going to write JavaScript because it's compatible. Okay. Um, README package.json. This is, you are allowed to make changes to this file, but you have to understand what you are doing whenever you make a change, because every change that you make within this um, every change that you make within this file would actually would um, will actually affect the code in production. Okay, and also would actually affect the code whenever you run it, and even in development mode. You know the project. These have all the dependencies. So this is where we have the Expo. The numbers here are actually versions of the Expo dependency or libraries that you are making use of. Okay, and everything that is written here has a meaning. So if you are not used to this, you need to understand. The other information here, like the name of the app, is here, main. Now, Node has a way of identifying where to begin executing the JavaScript code, and it uses this thing, a package.json. It's a JSON file, but it's a configuration file. So this one tells Node to begin execution from this folder, this library called Expo router / entry. So where do we find this, Expo router library? If you go to Node, as I said, look for. That's why I've said you don't need to program or do anything. Okay, so we have Expo here. Expo dash router is here. Okay, and / entry. Now this is the entry. So this is how it gets to know where the app will begin execution. Now this had been mounted to app, which is rendering this root component called app, and this root component called app actually is linked to a file, actually a folder. In this project is linked to a folder. It can be either a file or a folder, but the file should have a particular name, or the folder should have a particular name, which is app. And in this code, this is the folder that has that name called app. So every execution of your code will begin in app. So we are actually, this folder here called app is also a part of the code that you are allowed to make changes to. This is actually where our code execution begins. So things like our home screen that we see from the page, as you see it in this part of the screen. Yes, as you see it from my screen here, is actually this code. Okay, this code, and we can make changes here. We can actually change information here, and it will reflect within it. So let's take note of that. So that is the app folder, and I'm saying that if you open package.json, which is a configuration file that you can allow to make changes, it actually telling it to be here. So you can't change this information. If you change it, your code will not execute correctly. But there are things like the dependencies, particular dependency that you want. Even though we can manually make changes here, it is advisable to use a terminal. Okay, so in X code or Visual Studio Code, um, you can actually have this terminal open. You can add another terminal by just clicking here. Okay, so if you want to add a new dependency, you do npm install, then you write the name of the dependency, say expo whatever, um, let's say camera, and I can specify the version of the camera library that I want from Expo then I just type in the version, maybe 21 something, depending on the version that I want. But I can just do Expo camera and then it will install the latest version for me. So keep that in mind, that, and whenever you run a command like that, it will add a line to this. It will make a change here in this folder, and it will make another change in the lock.json. Now here you can make changes whenever you want to, when it is necessary. But here you are not supposed to make direct changes to it, because it is from here that the node package manager will generate the log file. So if you make a change here, it will actually use that to make the log file. So whatever changes you make here directly will not actually be effective unless the changes are here. Otherwise, when you run it to make the changes back, it will correct it within this log file. So this and this are the same, just that this one was built from this, and you are not supposed to touch this one. It's a logged file. It's a logged configuration. It's just for your project. But this one, you can actually make changes when you need to. So let's pay attention to that. And whenever you are adding a library, there are two places the library can be added. This is dependencies. These ones are the libraries that are going into production. These are files that will be added to your entire project when you make a build. And and this one is just for dependency for development. In other words, these ones are not going into production. When I say production, it means when you create an APK to install the app on your phone, or when you create an API uh, for iOS. Okay, and you that is a production. And also maybe when you are running it on your Expo Go, it's also production. Um, these ones here are just going to sit on this place, handle certain things for it to generate certain kinds of code for production. But they are not supposed. These files are not going to be part of the bundle for the actual production of your code. So this is necessary, and you can do that by whenever you're adding a library that you are not supposed to ship to production. You do npm install. You see dash save as a command, dash div dash save dash div, and you can specify the name of the library, React blah blah blah. Then you write the library name. This one will be placed here. Okay, the library, whichever library you are adding, will be placed here, and it will not be placed within this one. Right, so let's take note of that too. And so apart from these ones that I've pointed out, the app, I've talked about a lot of them. There are other folders that are also important, like the asset folder is for things like fonts, images. This is where you keep other things that you need for your project, images, fonts, and certain kinds of files that you need. And you have components. These are snippets codes that are going to be used within your actual project. And they're actually part of your project. So maybe if you want a button to be designed in a particular way, and it will be repeated in every part of your maybe several screens in your project, you don't want to be rewriting that particular design of a button. So you create a component for that. So there are other components that you can create, even for navigations, tab bar icon, for instance. So there are several things depending on what you would want. So that's the component folder. So this one is used within the app folder where you have everything executed. And to have it inside here, you would usually use an import. Okay, an import, and then you would specify where. So let's look for an example. So in index, under the tabs, you can see there's an import for at component. As you can see, component at component hello wave. So if you are using Mac, you can press and hold command and then click to direct you to the component. If you are using Windows, you can use Control and then click the link. It will also work. So it gives you the direction to where the particular code. So as you can see, we have imported these components into the tab. So these are the few things that you need to know. There are other folders like constants. These are particular values that you don't want to be rewriting them in several parts in case you forget the values, like a color of a button, those kind of constants that you'll be repeatedly using in your code, and you don't want to be rewriting them. You can write them in a constant folder, um, export them. We'll talk about how that is done, and then make use of them. You would also use the same way, import, and then you write the name of the constant that you are trying to import from that kind of file. And then hooks. Hooks are usually used for managing states within your projects. But by default, you are having some few hooks that have been created. Now, hooks are a way of managing state in this case. Let's use this code for instance. They are trying to manage the state of a team. So to manage the state means like I open the app, for instance. and I go to a particular page and say, and I have a configuration where I can change the theme. Okay, I can change it to dark mode or light mode. So where when I make a change, whether from my phone or from within the app, I want to be able to see that change in the app whenever I have the app opened. So I don't have to see it in only one page. I want to see it across every other page. That's where hooks come in, so that you don't have to um, like be passing variables from one place to another whenever you need to send an information that has been captured as a state into several other screens. So if I open the home tab and I move to the explore tab, I should still see my screen to be dark mode even if I have changed the screen. And that is where hooks are useful for. So managing states within the app is that simple. There are other files like the app.json. The get ignore is for get, managing simple things like version control. Then there's this app.json. This is actually the configuration file for the app itself. Now this package.json is the configuration file for Node, okay, the dependency library. But this one is for the app. So information that will affect the app, like the app name, when you install the app on your phone, the name that will appear will be the name that is available here. And that's the Expo configuration. There are things like splash screen icon, um, compatibility, screen orientation, some dependencies, plugins that you will use. If you are maybe using a camera configuration, things like permissions for you to use the camera on the phone. These are things that you will place within this file called app.json. All right, so that'll be all for now. This is the explanation to the folder we have here, each part and what it means. So thank you for watching. Join me in the second section where I go into the code itself.